Farming for Profit is a Beef and Lamb New Zealand program. It's driven by issues identified by farmers as being important to their region. A recent field day held in Marlborough focused on summer and autumn ewe management to maximise lamb numbers at tailing, as well as improving post-weaning lamb growth rates. Blenheim sheep farmer and chair of Farming for Profit, Richard Gorman, is involved in the program. Farm consultant Greg Shepherd is facilitating the program for beef and lamb.
Historically, Beef and Lamb have run monitor farm programs throughout the country. More recently, they've evolved into a new program called Farming for Profit. And these Farming for Profit programs are issues-based. We have a committee with each of these programs. Those committees work with beef and lamb extension managers and the facilitator of those programs, identify the key issues for a particular region, and then look to address those in a seminar, workshop type situation throughout the district to try and involve as many farmers as possible. The committee felt that the two issues that we needed to address most importantly were ewe management over the summer period and secondly lamb growth rate over the same time. I think the number one issue is being able to feed ewes adequate quantity and quality of feed over the summer period. Once the ewes wean, typically the ewes are drafted off and put into a particular mob and then used to manage pasture quality, often without much thought going into making sure that they're getting into the optimum body condition going into the new mating period. Bit of a gross rule of thumb, the ewe hogget probably needs to be at least a minimum of 60% of the ewe body weight when it goes to the ram in the autumn. If you haven't got that ewe hogget body weight up to that level, then I think you're going to struggle to get a decent lambing result out of them. The research will suggest that even in summer, normal pasture will have up to 40% of dead matter in it, minimum. As soon as you start driving the ewe down, or the lamb for that matter, down into the sward height, you start exposing it to that dead matter, which has got an ME of 8 megajoules of energy versus the better quality pasture at maybe 10.5 to 10.8 megajoules of energy. I think with parasite challenges, it's important that every 2 to 3 years a faecal egg count reduction test is undertaken, just to get a benchmark perspective on what the drench resistant status of the farm is, make sure everything's working properly. I think it's also important to monitor larval challenges and regularly do faecal egg counts on lambs, and certainly prior to tupping, I do recommend a faecal egg count on ewes. In respect to lamb growth rates, the first critical thing that farmers need to do is actually understand what lamb growth rate they're currently achieving. To do that, it's a case of knowing what weaning weight they are. It's then looking at what weights they're selling those lambs at and at what time of the year, what sale dates do they have. From that basic information, we can then work out what the average lamb growth rate throughout the summer or the season is, and that gives us a benchline level. Once we know what the lamb growth rate is, we can then look at the different tools that are available, whether that's forage crops or genetics, to improve that lamb growth rate over the period of time that they're on the farm. With respect to genetics, two critical figures that I recommend farmers spend some time looking at are the EBV values for weaning weight and 8-month live weight of the rams that they're buying. We know in this area that lambs on pasture, on average, will grow at about 100 grams a day, but there are some farmers that are achieving well in advance of that, upwards of 170, 180 grams a day on pasture, and they're achieving that through good management of pasture. They're achieving that through the use of new pasture species and being able to maintain high clover content within their pastures. Farmers using crops such as chicory and pasture and those sorts of things are regularly going to achieve 200 to 300 grams a day, but there is some cost associated with that as well that has to be taken into account when planning your overall lamb selling and marketing strategy.
This program was made with funding from New Zealand On Air.